The radio crackled with static at 3:47 hours, somewhere over the Hindu Kush Mountains. Ghost Rider 7, this is Neptune 16. We're taking heavy contact from multiple positions. Request immediate close air support. The voice belonged to Lieutenant Commander Marcus Reef Rodriguez, and even through the compressed digital transmission, Major Catalin Viper Kozlova could hear something she'd never detected in a SEAL team leader's voice before: desperation. From her position in the left seat of the AC-130U spooky gunship, Viper studied the thermal imaging display with the methodical precision that had earned her the Distinguished Flying Cross twice over. The green and black screen revealed a tactical nightmare unfolding in the valley below. 12 SEALs, call sign Neptune 16, were pinned down in what appeared to be a carefully orchestrated ambush. Muzzle flashes erupted from at least 6 different positions around their defensive perimeter, creating a deadly constellation of automatic weapons fire that had effectively trapped America's most elite warriors in a kill zone. Neptune 16, Ghost Rider 7 has your position. We're tracking multiple hostiles. Stand by for gun run. Viper's voice carried the calm authority of someone who'd spent 15 years perfecting the art of precision warfare from 8,000 feet above the battlefield. But as she banked the massive 4-engine aircraft into an attack orbit, she knew this mission would test every skill she'd acquired in her controversial career. The AC-130U Spooky was a technological marvel wrapped in the airframe of a Vietnam-era cargo plane. Its left side bristled with a 25 Gatling gun, a 40 Bofors cannon, and a 105 howitzer that could accurately place high-explosive rounds within meters of friendly forces. Tonight, those weapon systems would be operated by Staff Sergeant Miguel Santos on the 25, Technical Sergeant Jennifer Kim on the 40, and Master Sergeant Robert Tank Thompson on the 105. Each gunner had logged thousands of combat hours, but none had worked with Major Kozlova before this deployment. The mission brief had been routine: provide overwatch for a high-value target capture operation in the Kunar province. Intelligence suggested minimal resistance. The SEALs would fast rope from helicopters, secure the compound, extract their target, and be back at base before sunrise. Air support would be purely precautionary. That was 4 hours ago, before everything went catastrophically wrong. Ghost Rider 7, be advised we have wounded and are rapidly running low on ammunition. Reef's voice cut through her thoughts. How long can you maintain station? The question hung in the thin mountain air like a challenge. Standard AC-130 missions lasted 6 hours maximum. They'd already been airborne for 3, fighting headwinds and mechanical issues that had delayed their arrival. Fuel reserves were dropping faster than planned, and headquarters had made it clear that no tanker support was available until dawn. What the SEALs didn't know, what nobody except her crew knew, was that Major Catalin Kozlova had once been written off as a liability. Tonight, she would prove them all wrong. The first gun run began at exactly 3:52 hours, with Santos unleashing a precise burst from the 25 Gatling gun that created a line of sparks and dust across the mountainside. Each tracer round painted a deadly arc through the darkness, and through her night vision goggles, Viper watched 3 enemy fighters abandon their positions. The immediate pressure on the SEAL's eastern flank diminished, but this was just the beginning of what would become the longest night in Special Operations Command history. Good hits, came Reef's voice, noticeably calmer now. Ghost Rider 7, you just bought us some breathing room. But Viper knew the tactical situation remained desperate. Her thermal sensors were detecting movement in the surrounding ridgelines. Reinforcements were arriving, and the enemy was adapting to her attack patterns with concerning speed. Staff Sergeant Santos, monitoring his ammunition count, keyed his intercom. Major, I'm showing 60% remaining on the 25. His tone was professional, but Viper caught the underlying concern. At this rate of engagement, they'd be Winchester, completely out of ammunition, within 2 hours. Master Sergeant Thompson was already calculating angles for the 105 howitzer, knowing that the larger rounds would be needed to suppress the heavy weapons positions that were beginning to reveal themselves. The AC-130's engines hummed with mechanical precision as Viper adjusted their orbit slightly, positioning for Technical Sergeant Kim to engage with the 40 Bofors cannon. The targeting pod's thermal imagery revealed a group of fighters attempting to maneuver closer to the SEAL position, using a narrow ravine for concealment. Kim's first round impacted with devastating accuracy, sending up a plume of superheated air that bloomed white-hot on the thermal display. Neptune 1-6, this is Ghost Rider 7. I'm seeing multiple groups attempting to reinforce from the north and northwest. How's your ammunition situation? Viper's question was tactical, but she already knew the answer from the decreasing rate of ground-based return fire. The SEALs were conserving rounds, which meant they were down to their last magazines. Ghost Rider 7, we're at about 20% across the board. We've got 2 wounded, including our corpsman. We need extract birds, but the LZ is too hot. Reef's tactical assessment was grim but precise. Without helicopter support, the SEALs would have to fight their way to an alternate extraction point, assuming they could break contact with an enemy force that seemed to grow larger every hour. Viper's co-pilot, Captain Derek "Hawk" Harrison, was monitoring fuel consumption with increasing concern. Major, we're burning fuel faster than projected. These extended gun runs in thin air are killing our efficiency. At their current burn rate, they had perhaps 90 minutes of station time remaining before they'd be forced to return to base for refueling. But 90 minutes might as well be 90 seconds if the situation on the ground continued to deteriorate. The radio crackled again, this time with a transmission from their operations center. Ghost Rider 7, Battle Axeman, be advised, weather moving in from the west, ceiling dropping to 1,500 feet within the hour. You may need to adjust altitude for gun runs. The weather report added another variable to an already complex tactical equation. Lower altitude meant better accuracy but greater risk from ground fire. As if reading her thoughts, Santos reported fresh muzzle flashes from a new position. Major, I've got what looks like a heavy machine gun setting up on the eastern ridge. They're trying to bracket Neptune's position. Through her display, Viper could see the distinctive pattern of .51 caliber tracers beginning to probe toward the SEAL's defensive perimeter. The battle was escalating, and Major Catalin Viper Kozlova was running out of time. The heavy machine gun opened fire just as Viper rolled into her next attack run, its tracers creating brilliant orange streaks across the valley floor. Through her night vision system, she watched the rounds walk dangerously close to the SEAL's position before Santos responded with a devastating burst from the 25 Gatling gun. The enemy weapon fell silent, but not before Reef's voice crackled through the radio with new urgency. Ghost Rider 7, Neptune 1-6, we've got movement all around our position. This isn't random harassment, they're setting up for a coordinated assault. The SEAL team leader's tactical assessment confirmed what Viper's sensors were already telling her. The enemy had used the darkness to reposition multiple teams, and they were preparing to overwhelm the American position through sheer numbers. Captain Harrison was monitoring multiple radio frequencies, coordinating with their operations center while tracking the deteriorating weather conditions. Major, Battle Axeman is reporting no available extraction assets until first light. The closest quick reaction force is at least 2 hours out. The news meant the SEALs would have to hold their position through the night, relying entirely on the AC-130's firepower to keep overwhelming enemy forces at bay. Master Sergeant Thompson had been quietly calculating firing solutions for his 105 howitzer, studying the terrain and enemy positions through his targeting system. Major, I've got a shot on what appears to be a staging area about 800 meters northeast of Neptune's position. Thermals showing at least 15 personnel and possible weapons cache. The 105 round would devastate the target area, but it would also announce to every fighter in the valley that the Americans possessed heavy aerial firepower. "Take the shot, tank," Viper authorized, banking the aircraft to provide the optimal firing angle. The 105 howitzer's report was thunderous even inside the pressurized cabin, and seconds later a massive explosion lit up the mountainside. Secondary explosions confirmed Thompson's assessment. They destroyed a significant ammunition stockpile. But the victory was temporary. Radio intercepts suggested enemy reinforcements were already responding to the escalated engagement. Technical Sergeant Kim was tracking multiple targets through her 4-beam fire control system, prioritizing threats based on their proximity to the SEAL position. "I'm seeing organized movement along the southern approach. They're using smoke to mask their advance." Her observation revealed sophisticated enemy tactics that went beyond typical insurgent capabilities. Someone was coordinating this assault with military precision. The fuel situation was becoming critical. Captain Harrison's calculations showed they had perhaps 40 minutes of station time remaining at current consumption rates. But Major Kozlova had been studying alternative approaches, weighing tactical risks against mission requirements. "Hawk, what's our fuel state if we drop to 6,000 feet?" she asked, knowing the answer would reshape their engagement parameters. "We'd gain about 15 minutes of station time, but we'd be well within range of small arms and RPG fire," Harrison responded. The trade-off was stark: longer time on station at significantly increased risk, or abandoning the SEALs to save the aircraft and crew. It was the kind of decision that defined careers and haunted pilots for decades. Staff Sergeant Santos interrupted their discussion with urgent contact reports. "Multiple muzzle flashes, Western Ridge. They're attempting to flank Neptune's position." His 25 Gatling gun responded immediately, sending a stream of high-explosive rounds into the rocky terrain. Each round created a small explosion that illuminated the mountainside, revealing the scope of enemy movement. "Ghost Rider 7, we're taking fire from at least 4 directions now," Reef reported, his voice steady despite the deteriorating tactical situation. "We need continuous fire support if we're going to hold this position." The SEAL team leader understood the mathematics of warfare. 12 men with limited ammunition couldn't indefinitely repel dozens of attackers without overwhelming support from above. Major Kozlova made her decision with the calm finality that had characterized her entire military career. "Neptune 16, this is Ghost Rider 7. We're dropping altitude to 6,000 feet to extend our station time. Be advised, we're going to get much more precise with our fire." As she pushed the control yoke forward, beginning their descent into the engagement envelope of enemy weapons, she wondered if her crew understood what she just committed them to. The answer came immediately through the intercom system, as each gunner confirmed his ready status without hesitation. These men had chosen to follow her into the most dangerous phase of close air support operations, trusting her judgment over their own survival instincts. At 6,000 feet above the Hindu Kush, the war became personal. The descent to 6,000 feet transformed the tactical dynamics entirely. At the lower altitude, every detail of the battlefield became crystal clear through the AC-130's advanced sensor systems. Major Kozlova could distinguish individual enemy fighters, track their movement patterns, and identify weapons positions with unprecedented precision. But the enhanced visibility came at a terrible cost. The aircraft was now well within the effective range of rocket-propelled grenades and heavy machine guns. "Ghost Rider 7, I'm tracking an RPG team moving toward a firing position on the northern slope," Technical Sergeant Kim reported, her voice tight with concentration. Through her 4-beam fire control system, she could see 3 fighters maneuvering with a distinctive tube-shaped weapon. The threat was immediate and lethal. A single well-placed RPG could cripple or destroy the AC-130. Kim's response was immediate and devastating. The 4-beam Bofors cannon fired 3 rapid rounds, each one guided by sophisticated targeting algorithms that calculated wind speed, aircraft movement, and target trajectory. The first round impacted directly among the RPG team, eliminating the threat in a brilliant flash that lit up the mountainside. But the enemy adapted quickly. Within minutes of Kim's engagement, muzzle flashes erupted from multiple positions as small arms fire began reaching toward their altitude. Captain Harrison's instruments detected the distinctive sonic signatures of bullets passing close to the aircraft. "Major, we're taking effective fire from the ground," he reported with professional calm that masked the gravity of their situation. Staff Sergeant Santos was working overtime, his 25 Gatling gun engaging targets as quickly as his thermal sensors could identify them. Each burst from the electrically driven cannon created a stream of high-explosive rounds that carved through enemy positions with mechanical precision. "I'm seeing coordinated movement along multiple approach routes," he reported. "They're definitely working from a plan." Master Sergeant Thompson had been holding his 105 howitzer in reserve, waiting for high-value targets that justified the massive destructive power of his weapons system. That opportunity arrived when thermal imaging revealed a group of approximately 20 fighters establishing a support-by-fire position on the eastern ridge. "Major, requesting permission to engage large formation with 105, he transmitted. "Approved, tank. Danger close procedures in effect." Viper's authorization carried the weight of desperate necessity. The 105 howitzer round would create an explosion visible for miles, but it might be their only option for breaking up the coordinated assault that was developing around the SEAL's position. The howitzer's report was felt as much as heard, a percussion that vibrated through the aircraft's airframe and reminded everyone aboard of the weapon's devastating power. 8 seconds later, the round impacted with extraordinary precision, creating a massive explosion that eliminated the enemy firing position entirely. Secondary explosions suggested they'd destroyed another weapons cache, but radio intercepts indicated fresh enemy units were already moving to replace the casualties. "Ghost Rider 7, Neptune 16, outstanding shooting. You just broke up what looked like a company-sized assault." Reef's appreciation was genuine, but his tactical situation report remained grim. "We've got wounded requiring immediate evacuation, and we're down to our last ammunition for most weapon systems." The fuel situation was approaching critical levels. Captain Harrison's continuous calculations showed they had perhaps 20 minutes of station time remaining before they'd be forced to depart for refueling. But 20 minutes might not be enough time for the SEALs to survive until dawn, when quick reaction force units could finally reach their position. Major Kozlova was studying her tactical display when she noticed something that changed everything. The enemy movement patterns weren't random. They were following specific routes that suggested intimate knowledge of the terrain. Someone was directing this assault with detailed intelligence about the area's geography and the Americans' capabilities. This wasn't a chance encounter or opportunistic attack. The SEALs had walked into a carefully prepared trap. "Hawk, contact Battle Axeman. Tell them we need priority tanker support and immediate extraction assets. This isn't a routine engagement." Neptune walked into a planned ambush. Her assessment would reshape the military's understanding of enemy capabilities in the region, but more immediately, it meant the tactical situation was likely to deteriorate further before dawn. The radio crackled with fresh contact reports as the enemy launched their next coordinated assault. Multiple automatic weapons opened fire simultaneously, creating intersecting fields of fire designed to prevent the SEALs from maneuvering to better defensive positions. It was sophisticated small-unit tactics executed with precision that impressed even veteran special operations personnel. Santos, Kim, and Thompson worked in deadly harmony, their weapons systems creating a protective umbrella of explosive firepower around the embattled SEAL team. But even their combined firepower couldn't eliminate every threat, and the enemy continued to press their attack with determination that bordered on fanatical. As the AC-130 entered its final 20 minutes of station time, Major Kozlova realized that everything she'd trained for, everything she'd endured throughout her controversial career, had led to this moment above the Hindu Kush Mountains. The ammunition counters were telling a story that Major Kozlova didn't want to read. Staff Sergeant Santos reported 30% remaining on his 25mm system. Technical Sergeant Kim was down to 40% on her 40mm rounds. Master Sergeant Thompson had fired 8 of his 2105mm shells, leaving him with enough heavy firepower for perhaps 2 more major engagements. The mathematics of warfare were working against them with relentless precision. Ghost Rider 7, Neptune 16. We're seeing fresh movement from the south and east. Thermals showing at least 30 personnel moving in coordinated groups. Reef's report confirmed what the AC-130 sensors were already tracking. The enemy was committing additional forces to overwhelm the American position before the gunship was forced to depart for refueling. Captain Harrison's fuel calculations had reached the critical decision point. Major, we have 18 minutes before we hit bingo fuel. After that, we won't have enough reserves to reach the tanker. His words carried the weight of absolute mathematics. Stay too long, and they'd risk losing the aircraft and crew in addition to failing to save the SEALs. But Major Kozlova was studying patterns in the enemy movement that suggested a different approach. The attacking forces were concentrating their efforts along predictable routes, following terrain features that offered concealment but channeled them into specific areas. If she could anticipate their movement and preposition fires, she might be able to break their assault with more efficient use of remaining ammunition. Tank, I need you to calculate firing solutions for grid squares 8472 and 8495. That's where they'll have to cross open ground on their approach routes. Her tactical assessment was based on 15 years of reading terrain and predicting enemy behavior. If she was correct, Thompson's remaining 105 rounds could devastate the assault forces before they reached effective range of the SEAL position. Master Sergeant Thompson worked rapidly through his fire control system, calculating trajectory and timing for the pre-planned fires. Solutions ready, Major, but we'll be firing into areas where we can't confirm targets through thermal imaging. It was a significant tactical risk, firing expensive ammunition at anticipated positions rather than confirmed targets violated standard engagement protocols. Execute both missions on my command, Viper ordered, beginning a shallow turn that would position the aircraft for optimal gun runs. Her decision was based on combat intuition developed through thousands of hours of close air support missions. Sometimes the textbook approach wasn't sufficient for survival. The enemy assault began exactly as she'd predicted. Thermal imaging revealed multiple groups of fighters moving along the southern approach route, using a narrow valley to mask their advance until they reached the open ground where they'd be forced to cross exposed terrain. Execute Grid 8472, Viper commanded, and Thompson's first 105 round impacted with devastating effect. The explosion illuminated at least 15 enemy fighters caught in the open, the massive blast creating casualties and confusion that immediately disrupted their coordinated assault. Before the survivors could reorganize, Viper ordered the second mission. Execute Grid 8495. Thompson's round impacted among another group of fighters, creating similar devastation. Outstanding prediction, Major, Santos reported, engaging the scattered survivors with precise bursts from his 25mm system. You just broke up their main assault. But even as he spoke, fresh thermal contacts appeared on the northern approach routes. The enemy was adapting, committing additional forces to replace their casualties. Technical Sergeant Kim was tracking the new threats through her 40mm fire control system when she detected something that changed the tactical picture entirely. Major, I'm seeing what appears to be crew-served weapons moving into position on the eastern ridge. Thermal signature suggests mortars or recoilless rifles. The threat was immediate and lethal. Indirect fire weapons could target the SEAL position without exposing enemy forces to the AC-130's defensive fires. The fuel situation reached critical levels as Captain Harrison announced they had 12 minutes remaining before mandatory departure. But the enemy mortar position represented an existential threat to the SEALs that couldn't be addressed after the AC-130 departed. Major Kozlova faced the most difficult decision of her military career. Kim engaged the crew-served weapons with all available 40. Santos provide suppressive fire on any infantry attempting to interfere. Tank prepare for immediate engagement of any targets of opportunity. Her orders committed the last of their ammunition to a final, desperate attempt to eliminate the mortar threat before departing. The next 3 minutes witnessed the most intense close air support engagement in recent Special Operations Command history. All three weapon systems fired simultaneously, creating a synchronized symphony of destruction that eliminated multiple enemy positions. Kim's 40 rounds destroyed the mortar position with surgical precision, while Santos and Thompson suppressed supporting infantry units. Neptune 1-6, this is Ghost Rider 7. We've eliminated the mortar threat, but we're now bingo fuel and Winchester on most systems, Viper transmitted, her voice carrying the weight of professional regret. Departing for emergency refueling. ETA return in 90 minutes. The radio silence that followed lasted exactly 7 seconds before Reef's response changed everything Major Kozlova thought she knew about courage. Ghost Rider 7, Neptune 1-6. Understood on your fuel state. We'll be here when you get back. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez's transmission carried no trace of desperation or fear, just the calm acceptance of professional warriors who understood the tactical realities of their situation. 12 SEALs with minimal ammunition would hold their position for 90 minutes against overwhelming enemy forces, trusting that their Air Force guardian angel would return in time to prevent their annihilation. As Major Kozlova banked the AC-130 toward the northwest and their refueling rendezvous, she studied the tactical display one final time. Enemy forces were already beginning to reposition around the SEAL defensive perimeter, probing for weaknesses and preparing fresh assaults. The thermal imaging showed at least 40 fighters in the immediate area, with additional reinforcements continuing to arrive from surrounding valleys. Captain Harrison was coordinating their departure with air traffic control while monitoring weather reports that grew increasingly ominous. Major, the ceiling is dropping faster than predicted. We're looking at significant weather complications for the return flight. His assessment meant their 90-minute estimate might prove optimistic, adding another variable to an already desperate tactical equation. Staff Sergeant Santos was conducting post-engagement analysis of his weapons system, documenting ammunition expenditure and mechanical performance for intelligence reports that might never be written. Major, I'm showing 8% remaining on 25. We fired more rounds tonight than in my last 6 missions combined. His professional assessment carried undertones of awe at the intensity of engagement they just survived. Technical Sergeant Kim was similarly analyzing her 40 system performance, noting the precision required for engagements at the lower altitude they'd maintained for the final hour. The lower altitude definitely improved our accuracy, but we took more ground fire than I've ever experienced. Her observation highlighted the calculated risks Major Kozlova had accepted to extend their station time and improve their effectiveness. Master Sergeant Thompson was securing his 105 howitzer system while calculating the tactical impact of their remaining ammunition. Major, I've got 4 rounds remaining, enough for 2 more major engagements if we select targets carefully. His assessment would be crucial for the return flight, when ammunition conservation might determine whether the SEALs survived until dawn. The AC-130's 4 turboprop engines hummed with mechanical precision as they climbed toward their refueling altitude, leaving behind the mountains where 12 Americans continued fighting for their lives. Major Kozlova understood that the next 90 minutes would be the longest of her military career, knowing that every second of delay increased the probability that they'd return to find only silence on Neptune 16's radio frequency. But as the Hindu Kush Mountains disappeared behind them, she was already planning their return engagement. The enemy had revealed their positions, tactics, and approximate strength during the initial battle. When Ghost Rider 7 returned, she would use that intelligence to devastating effect. The radio crackled with transmissions from their operations center, coordinating the emergency refueling while monitoring the tactical situation through satellite surveillance and signals intelligence. Ghost Rider 7 Battle Axeman. Be advised, satellite imagery shows continued enemy movement in your AO. Neptune 16 appears to be maintaining defensive positions, but enemy strength is estimated at company level or higher. The intelligence update confirmed Major Kozlova's assessment. The SEALs were facing overwhelming odds that would test the limits of their training, equipment, and endurance. 12 men against possibly 100 enemies, with limited ammunition and no possibility of ground-based reinforcement until daylight. It was the kind of tactical situation that produced Medal of Honor citations or memorial services. As they approached the refueling track, Captain Harrison was already calculating fuel loads and return times, optimizing their capacity for maximum station time on the return flight. Major, if we take on a full fuel load, we can maintain station for up to 4 hours on the return. That should carry us past dawn and the arrival of extraction assets. His planning provided the foundation for what Major Kozlova hoped would be the final phase of the engagement. The AC-135 tanker appeared on their radar exactly on schedule, its crew already informed of the tactical urgency surrounding their refueling mission. Within minutes, the AC-130 was connected to the tanker's fuel boom, receiving the aviation gasoline that would allow them to continue their Guardian Angel mission over the Hindu Kush. But 90 minutes was an eternity in close combat, and Major Kozlova could only hope that Neptune 16's legendary training would prove sufficient against the odds they faced. The refueling process required 12 minutes of precise formation flying, during which Major Kozlova monitored multiple radio frequencies for updates on Neptune 16's tactical situation. The silence was absolute. No emergency transmissions, no requests for fire support, no tactical updates. Either the SEALs were maintaining communication discipline to avoid revealing their positions, or they were no longer in a position to transmit. Captain Harrison completed the refueling checklist with methodical precision, while coordinating their return flight path with air traffic control. Weather reports indicated the ceiling over their target area had dropped to 800 feet, with visibility reducing to less than 2 miles. The conditions would complicate their return engagement, requiring instrument approaches, and potentially preventing the lower altitude tactics that had proven so effective during their first station period. Major Battle Axeman is reporting intermittent radio contact with Neptune 16, came the transmission from their operations center. Last confirmed transmission was 23 minutes ago, reporting continued contact with enemy forces. The update provided minimal tactical information, but confirmed that at least some members of the SEAL team remained alive and operational. Staff Sergeant Santos was reviewing targeting procedures for low-visibility conditions, preparing for engagements that would rely heavily on thermal imaging and radar systems rather than visual identification. Major, if the ceiling forces us to stay above the weather, we'll be limited to targets we can confirm through thermal signature. Visual confirmation won't be possible. His assessment highlighted the technological challenges they'd face on the return flight. Technical Sergeant Kim was conducting preventive maintenance on her 4D fire control system, ensuring optimal performance for the anticipated extended engagement. All systems showing green, Major. We're ready for whatever we find when we get back. Her professional confidence masked the reality that they were returning to a tactical situation that had likely deteriorated significantly during their absence. Master Sergeant Thompson had been studying terrain maps and satellite imagery of their target area, identifying likely enemy positions and planning optimal firing solutions for his remaining 105 rounds. Major, based on enemy movement patterns from our first engagement, I've got preliminary solutions for 12 high-probability target areas. We should be able to achieve maximum effect with minimum ammunition expenditure. The weather briefing they received during refueling painted a challenging picture for their return flight. In addition to the reduced ceiling and visibility, winds had increased to 30 knots with significant turbulence expected below 5,000 feet. The conditions would test both aircraft and crew while potentially degrading the accuracy of their weapon systems. As they completed refueling and began their return flight toward the Hindu Kush, Major Kozlova was reviewing lessons learned from their first engagement. The enemy had demonstrated sophisticated tactics, detailed knowledge of the terrain, and access to substantial quantities of ammunition and personnel. They'd also shown remarkable persistence, continuing their assault despite devastating losses to AC-130 firepower. Ghost Rider 7, this is Neptune 16. The radio transmission cut through the tactical planning session like a lifeline thrown to drowning sailors. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez's voice carried obvious fatigue, but maintained its professional composure. We're still here, still taking contact from multiple directions. Our ammunition situation is critical, and we have 3 wounded requiring immediate evacuation. The relief in the AC-130's cabin was palpable. After more than an hour of uncertainty, Neptune 16 remained operational and capable of coordinating fire support. But Reef's tactical update confirmed that the SEAL team's situation had deteriorated significantly during Ghost Rider 7's absence. 3 wounded meant their combat effectiveness was reduced by 25%, while critically low ammunition meant they had perhaps minutes of defensive capability remaining. Neptune 16, this is Ghost Rider 7 returning to station with full fuel and ammunition. ETA your position in 15 minutes. Provide updated tactical situation and priority targets. Major Kozlova's transmission began the process of re-establishing the life-saving partnership between air and ground forces that would determine whether 12 Americans lived to see dawn. The return flight to the Hindu Kush felt longer than the 63 minutes recorded in Captain Harrison's navigation log. Every minute represented potential catastrophe for the embattled SEALs, whose tactical situation had become increasingly desperate during the AC-130's absence. As they approached their target area, weather conditions had deteriorated exactly as predicted, forcing them to remain above a solid cloud deck that obscured visual contact with the battlefield. Neptune 16, Ghost Rider 7 is 2 minutes out. We're going to have to work through the weather, so all targeting will be based on your guidance and our thermal systems. Major Kozlova's transmission established the parameters for their resumed engagement, acknowledging the technological challenges while reassuring the SEALs that air support had returned. Ghost Rider 7, Neptune 16. We've been under continuous pressure from multiple directions. Enemy has established positions on all surrounding ridges and appears to be preparing for a final assault. We're down to less than 2 magazines per man, and our wounded need immediate evacuation. Reef's tactical update painted a picture of professional warriors pushed to the absolute limits of their endurance. Staff Sergeant Santos was already tracking thermal signatures through the cloud cover, his 25 fire control system identifying multiple heat sources that likely represented enemy personnel. Major, I'm seeing significant activity on the northern and eastern ridges. Thermal patterns suggest at least 20 personnel in prepared positions. The enemy had used the AC-130's absence to establish defensive positions that would complicate close air support operations. Technical Sergeant Kim's Fordheim system was painting targets through the weather, using radar guidance to identify crew-served weapons and personnel concentrations. I'm tracking what appears to be mortar positions on the eastern slope, same thermal signature as the weapons we engaged earlier. Her identification of indirect fire weapons represented an immediate threat that required priority engagement. Master Sergeant Thompson was calculating firing solutions through the challenging weather conditions, using GPS coordinates provided by the SEAL team to establish baseline references for his 105 system. Major, I can provide precision fires on coordinates called by Neptune 16, but we'll need accurate target location data due to limited visibility. His assessment acknowledged both the capabilities and limitations of their engagement options. The radio crackled with renewed contact reports as the enemy launched their anticipated assault. Ghost Rider 7 were taking effective fire from Grid AC-461, multiple automatic weapons, requesting immediate suppression. Reef's fire mission request was transmitted with the calm professionalism of someone who'd coordinated hundreds of similar engagements, but the underlying urgency was unmistakable. Santos responded immediately, his 25 Gatling gun sending a stream of high-explosive rounds through the cloud cover toward the designated grid coordinates. The rounds impacted with satisfying precision, creating multiple explosions that illuminated the clouds from below and immediately reduced the volume of enemy fire directed at the SEAL position. Good hits, came Reef's confirmation. Enemy fire from that position has ceased. Be advised, we're now taking fire from Grid 8475, approximately 15 personnel with small arms and what appears to be an RPG. The tactical update highlighted the enemy's ability to maintain pressure through multiple positions, requiring the AC-130 crew to engage targets in rapid succession. Kim's 40 system engaged the new threat with devastating effect, her rounds impacting among the enemy fighters and eliminating the RPG threat before it could engage the aircraft. But even as she confirmed the engagement, fresh thermal contacts appeared on her targeting system, indicating continuous enemy reinforcement of their assault positions. Major Kozlova was analyzing the overall tactical picture when she realized the enemy was executing a coordinated plan designed specifically to counter AC-130 operations. They'd established multiple redundant positions, maintained reserves to replace casualties, and positioned indirect fire weapons to threaten both the aircraft and the SEAL defensive perimeter. It was sophisticated planning that suggested professional military training rather than typical insurgent tactics. Hawk, contact Battle Axe Main. Tell them we're engaged with what appears to be a conventional military unit, possibly company strength or larger. This isn't random insurgent activity. Her assessment would reshape intelligence understanding of enemy capabilities in the region, but more immediately, it meant they were facing opponents with advanced training and equipment. The tactical engagement continued with devastating intensity, as all three weapon systems engaged multiple targets simultaneously. The combination of 25, 40, and 105 fires created a protective umbrella around the SEAL position that prevented enemy forces from achieving decisive superiority. But ammunition consumption rates indicated they faced the same logistical challenges that had forced their earlier departure. As the second hour of renewed combat began, Major Kozlova understood that this engagement would define not only her military career, but potentially the future of close air support doctrine for special operations forces. The ammunition situation was approaching critical levels for the second time in 6 hours, but Major Kozlova had learned valuable lessons during their first engagement that would extend their operational effectiveness. Instead of engaging every thermal signature that appeared on their sensors, she was directing her gunners to prioritize targets based on immediate threat to Neptune 16's survival. Conservation of ammunition had become as tactically important as accuracy of fires. Major, I'm showing 40% remaining on 25, Santos reported, his voice carrying the professional concern of someone who'd calculated the mathematics of their situation. At current engagement rates, they had perhaps 30 minutes of effective fire support remaining.